everyone, my name is Sean Cotter, and I'm the executive director for Wicked Queer, Boston's LGBTQ plus film festival. And I am joined by some of our filmmakers and some of our programmers who put together this GTFO program. Get the fuck out of here! Yay! This is usually our craziest program of the festival where we put all of our lovely things that we see that we're like, where are we going to put this? Where are we going to put this? So, and this year is no different than any other. Our program starts out a little tame, but then gets very naughty at the end. So don't bring your mom, please. And I hope that you will enjoy our conversation. So I'm going to start. Let's get it started by having the filmmakers go around, introduce yourself, and say a couple lines about your film. So we're going to start with Gilberto.
Hi, thank you for having me. Forgive my English. I'm from Puerto Rico, so I don't have many words and my pronunciation. My short film is Echo. It's about this young man that has a pain in his back, and when he sees through a mirror the source of this pain, it's like an eye that has grown from inside him, and he also talks. So the story is about what he does to get it out and how it distorts reality and his perspective from the world. It's a story about the voice inside your head getting out of control and you dealing with it.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved your film, and
Thank you.
don't worry about your accent or your English. Perfectly fine. We're all from Boston, so we all have really heavy accents, anyways.
Okay,
So,
that's
and
great.
my English is not is even though it's my first language, is not always very good. So, um, Jason, if you could lead us next.
I'm Jason Schumacher. I'm from Minnesota, and my film is Build Yourself a Birthday Party, sort of a colorful film about the anxieties around having another birthday.
Fair enough. I've seen many candles on my cake, so I completely understand that. I loved the sort of like the sort of colorness and that sort of playfulness of your film a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
last but not least, Tristan.
Hey, I'm Tristan Scott Behrens. My film's called Lilac Lips, Dutchess County, and it is sort of like a retelling of the story of Narcissus with this queer commentary lens over it. And yeah, that's it.
Um, yeah, I mean, your film is, I mean, you're an alum of Wicked Queer, so we always appreciate when you submit work to us.
Thanks.
So
I always love
I guess,
screening with you guys.
yeah, you know, we love having you here. So it's a love fest.
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna start with you because it's a little easier, and then we'll go back around. So if you could kind of tell me how your film kind of came about. It's super interesting. I really love the sort of like I mean, obviously was made in the pandemic because of you have one principal actor in it who plays multiple roles. And tell me a little bit about that sort of like that process of sort of making it.
Yeah, well, I was really wanting to make something during the pandemic. Like I just was starting to get a little bit depressed from not having the ability to make work, and I was at home watching Cocteau's, or why can't I say his name? Jean Cocteau. What? I can say it. Jean Cocteau's Orpheus. Sorry, I had a brain breakdown, and I was really inspired by some of the way he like layered film over other pieces of film to really create like this tension and this mystery in the story, and that just kind of inspired me. And reminded me that just because we have like not a lot of money or not a lot of like technology at my disposal, that there's still a lot of things you can do to kind of make things happen with technology to tell stories. And there's a lot of like old school special effects that can be done that I felt like I could take advantage of. And so once I kind of got inspired by that idea of like playing images on top of each other, and with him doing Orpheus, I realized that Narcissus was such a natural thing to explore within the queer lens, because it is such a queer story by nature, but also it has this really great lineage of being explored in queer cinema throughout its like really earliest days of existence. So I kind of wanted to throw my hat into the ring and continue on that legacy, just as it really suited the times of pandemic. Like, I really thought it would be so funny to see someone having sex with themselves, and I wanted to make a film in the pandemic also that wasn't like about the pandemic. Like, I wanted the limitations of the pandemic to be a part of the process of making the film. So that's why there's just one actor in it. But I didn't want it to be depressing or in any way like addressing the fact that that is what was going on, because I was just so tired of the experience of living in that world that I didn't think that many people would want to find entertainment in that, and I wanted to kind of create an escapist, funny, silly little moment to just for myself, to like, as I'm editing it, I wanted to be thinking about other stuff. You know, I wanted to create a distraction for myself from.
We appreciate that, because we definitely got some pandemic films, and we were like
Yeah.
going back and forth about making a program, but it's like no one necessarily needs to be reminded of what we're living in right now.
Not yet. A lot of things that look like this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I really sort of appreciate that sort of the exploration too, and I know your films are always have this sort of like this sort of colorful kind of palette to them, and I love that you sort of like found inspiration in Kako. I think that's really kind of amazing, because I know myself that one of the things that the pandemic has sort of like done for me is sort of like made me watch lots of stuff. I mean, I watch a lot of stuff anyways because we're involved in a film
Yeah.
festival. But as far as like watching stuff for pleasure and sort of like for information and sort of influence, I think that's really kind of an amazing kind of point of departure to sort of jump off. And I do really love the effects that you used in that, so that the sort of the multiples of the actor
Cool,
sort of
thanks.
playing off each other. It kind of reminded me like it's funny that Narcissus is like we have your film and we also have Saint Narcisse by Bruce LaBruce.
I'm excited to see it.
It just makes me kind of laugh that because we're all like looking at our phones
Yeah.
as well, which is like almost like a mirror in many ways. And it's weird that the sort of like Narcissus sort of has become sort of like a not a hot topic, but like it's like another cultural point right now, which is kind of great. So you're also hitting a zeitgeist in many ways of
That's something that I really thought a lot about, actually, was that while it's been obviously done a lot in film before, that we're seeing this like extreme version of the queer narcissist story now, in terms of just like Instagram and the kind of culture of gay sexuality that's being displayed in that way, both like on an individual level, but also as like as a cultural moment. Gosh, for some reason these Zoom things make me more nervous than with an audience in front of us. Is that weird?
Yeah,
Does anyone else
right?
have that?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's so weird.
It's supposed to be the other way.
I know. Yeah, it's. I always get really like.
well, you're among friends, and
Thanks.
this is safe space. Plus, it's GTFO, so it's like, who cares?
Right.
I
We're,
cannot
that's true.
relate to being nervous.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you have the protection of. So, yeah, and I was gonna say about what we were saying about watching a lot of films. I realized with this story, I was kind of pulling a little bit from like Haley Mills' Parent Trap, and also a little bit from like Kenneth Anger when I came into like the sex scene at the end. So
Love
yeah,
Haley.
there's definitely
Parent Trap.
the Parent Trap was a really big influence on this film, actually.
They
But not
should
the-
have
but
never
not the-
made the newer version.
But not
No,
the
I
Lilo
know.
one.
No, Haley Mills all
no,
the
Come
way.
on. Poor Lilo. She doesn't get any credit at all. I totally got Kenneth Anger from yours, especially the sex scene is very Kenneth Anger Fantasia, which is kind of amazing. And I also like the sassy waitress. Like, I want her to bring me some pie.
Yeah, she was fun, right?
Like she needed, like, I want the special. Whatever she's serving, I want it.
I found her in a thrift store in upstate New York. Like, I mean, like the wig and the dress and everything was just like all ready to go. I think probably some like drag queen passed away and left it.
Someone
to
left
the
it.
thrift store.
Exactly. Someone just left it for you to be the.
Yeah.
The
It was amazing. Like there she was, just Dory standing there at the checkout. It was cool.
Jason, so the build yourself a birthday party. I mean,
Yep.
everybody loved everybody. I was the kid who never had birthday parties, so not that that's wah, but I really loved the sort of joyousness of your film. Like it was really great, and it had some darkness in it too. I'm like that cat.
Yeah.
We're cat people here because there'll be cats coming in and out of the screen, but
He's
on this
kind of the antagonist. Yeah.
what a kind of slightly attractive cat too. He was kind of like very like seductive with his both his kills and his paw cleaning. So tell me little bit about why the concept as it is and how sort of you kind of like created it.
Yeah, I'd wanted to make something. Well, the composer and I were going to make something together, and we both started talking about how we both kind of had a lot of social anxiety, and we wanted to make a film about that. And we thought a good, event to center that around would be a birthday party. And the film was originally created for this Minneapolis event called Film Score Fest, where they present the films with a live score, like present in 19 teen style.
Nice.
And so I'd also been doing like a lot of dialogue heavy films, and I really want to challenge myself with doing something silent. And so it started to kind of snowball from there. And I just kind of wanted to like also kind of strip things down and just do it without sets and try to just like make the lighting be the sets and just kind of play in this different way.
I love the moment where and this is total spoiler, sorry audience, but you should already have watched the program by the time you're seeing this. But I love the kill of the mouse. Like it was so charming, and it was such a horrible. I mean, it's a horrible thing when a cat kills a mouse. I have 4 cats who are hunters, and they have definitely left me mouse presents in my shoes and in my bed. So it's always horrifying to me when a mouse dies, but it was sort of charming and kind of, I don't know, adorable in many ways.
I loved the effect.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. I mean, great too. Like the sort of like the way the sort of like blood kind of like just it was also very charming. I loved it.
Yeah, we wanted to try to do a lot of stuff with just like light and fishing line and fabric and just kind of like have everything be implied. And a lot of that film came, I think, like looking back into my own, whatever formation of things that gave me anxiety early on. And I was just thinking back to like children's shows I watched as a kid and how, there'd be people like dressed up as different animals. And as I got older, I was like, these are like predator and prey animals that wouldn't necessarily be in the same room as each other. So I think that's where some of those weird scenes kind of started to come from.
Like the news you review.
Mm-hmm.
That's so true. It reminds me of what kids show was it when they dressed up in the big stuffed animals? Do you know what I'm talking about? Now that you say that, it totally reminds me of that. Like,
the news review.
Yeah.
Henrietta.
I mean, that might have been you and I, Joe, but
Jason.
Yeah.
Are the flames available? Because I'm looking for backup dancers for my Vegas review, kind of like a Joey Heatherton, Lola Falana. So I really want the flames there.
Okay. Well, the flame in the front is me.
Oh, great.
So
I've got one flame.
Yeah, just let me know. We actually shot that first while everybody else was getting their costumes on, and that kind of like set the pace for the day. Once everybody saw me in the skin tight orange thing and the other two and just like going nuts and dancing, then it kind of like, I think, loosened everybody up and everybody kind of like knew what film we were making after that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it had such a great energy, and again, we're all sort of like in sort of the midst of this sort of like really kind of heavy time right now, and just the joyousness of your film was really kind of well appreciated. So thank you.
Yeah.
Gilberto, same question for you. Your film was like amazingly, it was like shocking and tense, and I loved it. And I'm like,
agreed.
The ending, I was just like, whoa, because it kind of goes like you don't even know where it's going, and all of a sudden you are where you are, and I'm like, just tell me a little bit about how you conceptualized it and how you kind of got to where we saw. So.
Well, 15 years ago, I didn't know I had a condition, and my way of expressing was writing what I felt, and the words turned into stories. So I remember walking in my high school hallways, feeling a hole in my chest and in my back, and emptiness just like eating through me. Nobody knew I had it, so um, everyone was just like walking around through their day, and I felt the need to write a story about this kid that had a monster on his back feeding from his neck, and this monster grew bigger and bigger, and it was so heavy, but it was also invisible to everyone else. So I put the story aside for many years. I diagnosed with bipolar disorder finally, and everything in my life made sense. It wasn't imaginary, it was pretty much real. 3 years ago, I mentioned the story to a friend of mine, and they told me it was good. I was surprised, so I said, let's start working on it and make a feature film. Right in the middle of working on it, I heard about a script competition for short films. And I took the first 12 pages and turned it into a short film. It got selected, and we made the short film as a proof of concept of the story of the bigger film that we want to make. And here it is. Because of money reasons, of course, we had to film in only 2 days. We had a limited amount of time to edit. We had a limited amount of shots that I could make. So I wasn't very much satisfied with the end product. But with more resources, I know we can do better.
You shot that in 2 days? That's incredible. You should be very proud of yourself for what you did in
I
2 days.
ended crying, exhausted. It was crazy. There were so many shots, and the producer was always like, "You need to cut. There's no time. There's no time." And I was like figuring out how to make it possible. But yeah, I'm very glad you like it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, really amazing. Katie, I'm gonna open the floor to you if you wanna ask questions.
Sure. Still, while we're on Gilberto, I thought it was such a beautiful way to portray, mental illness in such a way. And particularly now that you were explaining, something's eating at you. And how did you actually do the eye? And then how has it been received as far as a commentary on mental illness?
Well, one of the things of having mental issues is that you don't know where you end and where your sickness begins. You don't know what comes from you and what comes from your condition. And it's like this voice inside your head that's always monitoring what you do, what you think, what you feel. It's like this mental panopticon, a concept that Michel Foucault works with, especially in the prison system and corrective system. No matter where you are, it's always going to be watching you. So it
Mhm.
was a no-brainer to think of an eye. Then it was a matter of where to put it. I wanted to think of a place where you can't see it unless you have a mirror, adding this element on your own perspective of your reflection.
Mhm.
So we tried to pay for a robotic eye because I'm less a CGI person and more of a practical effects person, but it was surprisingly more expensive to make the eye um, real than in CGI. So we started talking to friends and finally found someone that was willing to do it. It was very crazy.
And I really found your lead very captivating. How was the casting process?
The casting process.
Yeah.
Well, Ricardo, I've worked with him before in other short films, and he's a really talented guy. I know that he has so much potential. I believe in this guy, and I want to make the feature film with this guy because I want his face to get out there. I mean, I'm thinking of maybe if maybe I get some recognition with my team, we all can make the bigger cut. I don't know. Well, it was a no-brainer. It was him. the
Mhm.
minute that I started working with him, he understood the character, and he was asking for music to get inspired. He was asking for movies to get inspired. So it was him.
That's amazing when you have that immediate connection with someone as far as casting goes as a director that you know like this is it, and then when you get to see the final product, you're like, yep,
Yes.
like this you like you can't imagine anyone else playing that part.
Mm.
That's awesome. Jason, with Birthday Party, I loved the set design and just even like when she's talking through the can and you have the murmur like with the music and stuff. Like, can you talk me through the set design and how you guys made that?
Yeah, my wife and I made all the props and all the sets, and then we, yeah, so it was just like wanting to, yeah, make everything sort of out of plywood and cloth, and like getting really inspired by like those children's shows I watched as a kid. Zoobly Zoo was one that I was
That's
like,
it, Jubilee Zoo. That's what I was talking about.
yes, that was a big influence on that one. Yep. Which I think like you know, both kind of delighted and like scared me as a kid.
Yes.
So I think there was like a perfect inspiration for some, you know, a film about a party that's like fun, but she's also like very anxious, and there's kind of all these dark moments. So yeah, so it was just really trying to do it in this scrappy kind of theatrical, you know, PBS kind of way. So
For sure, that definitely came across. I'm so glad now I know it's Jubilee Zoo because I was like
yes.
thinking about it. Tristan, I love the use, the aesthetic and the use of color, like even with like the red lipstick. Did you have specific choices of for everything as far as like with wardrobe and things like that? Were there very specific details for you?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to really approach my work consistently from a visual place. For this piece, I was really inspired by where I was. I was upstate New York, trying to kind of escape the chaos of the world, and it was and there's just a lot of like natural colors coming out. There are a lot of like purple flowers everywhere, and um, pops of green, and then there were also all these really great old vintage diners everywhere, so that all had this like really um, specific color palette that is kind
Yeah.
of one that I resonate with anyway. That kind of like 60s Disney colors that aren't found in nature, and so that really served as like a starting point for me, just based off of what our resources were. We didn't really have any money to make this. I think that we spent $500 in total for the whole
Wow.
movie. So
$500 well spent.
thanks. Yeah, I mean, that's in cash. I will say, like, there were a lot of favors pulled. So, but I really had to like, I had to really base all of that based on what was available and what was at my disposal. So, and what I could do quickly, like I wrote it over the course of a few days, and then we were shooting it within a couple of weeks after I had everybody. Like I had my DP up there. The actor I was supposed to be working with on something else anyway, so he was kind of close by. But
That's cool.
yeah, but yeah, that is it, for me. It is just like it's what I'm drawn to in film is the visual nature of it largely. Like I grew up doing theater, and I love stage, and I love what can happen on stage. But the thing that interests me in film as a medium is that it can be so visual to tell a story. And the stories that I grew up really watching and falling in love with were like MGM musicals with Technicolor and over-the-top costumes, or like Disney movies like Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks and The Parent Trap. And then as an adult, like a lot of both new queer cinema, but also like Kenneth Anger and Pink Narcissus and all of that. It's also like really in that John Waters. It's all in that Pedro Almodovar. Why can't I not say any of the names today?
It's okay.
I normally can. All of those words to me like are really colorful and really intentional with what the colors, costumes, and set designs represent in the way that they're telling stories. And so that's something that I always like to.
Yeah, the three of these films I feel like had such a distinct aesthetic to all of them, and it kind of you get to know you guys as filmmakers as far as what we're seeing on screen. So I loved all three of these.
Yeah, that's really good. Joe, do you want to ask any questions to our filmmakers?
Sure. I'll start off with Tristan since I had chosen that. And I was really glad to see that somebody did an updating of classic literature. Um, and because we've seen things like the portrait of Dorian Gray done to death, so it was really refreshing to see this, and have like an old classic like dusted off and made new again. Was it difficult in recreating the sex scenes for Joey, because that's a lot of work for somebody to have sex with themselves? I know it's difficult to just have sex with another person.
Yeah. It the hardest part for me making the film was the technical aspect of it. I'm not really like interested in film from a technical standpoint, and I tend to edit my own work just out of the financial factors around it. But I really like the sex stuff was actually a lot easier than just like the stuff in the diner where I'm having to make all the islands match up and having to have him have conversations with himself. And
And then the
I had to,
waitress too.
and the waitress as well. Yeah. So I had to really like approach it first by getting all of that technical stuff out of the way. And I spent the first month, it took me a really long time to edit it. I spent the first month just like laying out everything technically and figuring out like the system as to what worked where, and getting the sex stuff to match up properly, and kind of exploring with that what I could do. And then I kind of had to like set the film away for like 2 months and like not touch it or look at it, because I was so invested in that technical side of it that I started to really lose track of what worked as a story, and got really like locked into like, oh, but I really love that one sexual thing that I made him do that really made me laugh. So I had to really like, I had to kind of treat it like two different brains. And it was kind of a battle of it. But yeah, the sex stuff was really fun, and it was really fun to shoot it because the actor just was so willing to go there, and he was so willing to be vulnerable, and he had no idea what I was going to do to it at the end. He still hasn't seen it. So yeah, so I love that part. It really makes me laugh. I think it's so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much joy to it as well, and that's why I have to say both of Tristan and also Jason, your films have had so much joy to it, and um, again, it, it's sort of what's really needed. And Joe, sorry, I jumped in.
Oh, that's all right. I just had another comment that, like, years ago, I had heard that homosexuality is the ultimate of narcissism, because what better way to have sex with someone like you than another male? So did
Yeah,
that kind of play
never.
into it, that antiquated notion of, homosexuality as narcissism?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that really opened up some interesting things for me to think about in terms of, first I was kind of noticing that a lot of my peers often end up in relationships with people that look a little bit too much like them, in a way that's a bit uncomfortable. And then I've realized for myself that unless I'm actually having sex with myself, which unfortunately is all I've been doing for last year, I tend to go for the exact opposite. And so I kind of was exploring like, well, what does that also mean? Like, is that shame? Is it a lack of self-love? Is it a lack of acceptance? So I think there's like a, a balance that should be kind of found in there that's healthy for across the board. Did I answer your question, or did I just
Yeah,
share too
thank
much
you.
about
I
myself?
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any insight is good insight.
Okay. Cool.
Jason, when I was watching the film, like during the programming stages, and I saw that it reminded me of, like, have you seen Wonder Chosen, which was on, I think, Comedy Central a while back?
Oh
That
yeah.
kind of irreverent take on children's programming by really twisted adults.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
was yours supposed to be like kind of a take on that, or just adults for adults?
Yeah, it was certainly, yeah, a little bit of playing, kind of messing with that children's show, not quite to the extreme maybe that Wonder shows him, but definitely like kind of breaking it apart. Or we shot the parts where she has like a panic attack with all these different cameras, and so that in my mind was that kind of format, like breaking apart as she gets, more anxious. So, yeah.
Great. And like I said, when the flames are road ready, I've got my show together. So,
All right.
and Gilberto, I really loved your film. When you were talking about, kind of a mental illness, when I saw the placement of the eye on the back, I'm in recovery and sober 27 years. I thought of the phrase having a monkey on your back, if you're familiar with that, about addiction. And, I may not use drugs or alcohol, but the thought is always there. So is there any of that element of like having that gnawing sensation all the time?
Yes, definitely. And first of all, I want to say congratulations because I mean, staying sober is really hard. And if you're succeeded in that, man, I applaud you, really.
Thank you.
Um, well, having mental issues is like having another entity inside your mind, and not only watching but also commenting and criticizing. And if you're not going through an episode, the voice is you, but while you're in the storm, it feels like somebody else, and like an echo, the voice is just a repetition of you, and there is no escaping. Sort of a cave being bullied by it. For me, an echo can be the greatest villain. You can't punch a sound. You can't reason with it, and it exists because of you. So definitely that sensation, it was there.
Because we're always our own worst critic anyway. Now, knowing that you shot that film amazingly in 2 days, did you have a very stringent storyboard, or you just had your idea and vision and were very executing of that?
Because of the time constraint, I definitely had every single shot drawn. I passed what I had to a clean paper, so I had it really numbered. I'm a very organized filmmaker. I want everything to be as sharp as possible. Oh, obviously, if the actors want to play a little and do something else, I'm gonna let them. It's their art. But in terms of, I can only play because I plan. And yes, it was definitely storyboarded, and we had many discussions days preview the day of the filming.
Great. Thank you. I love all your work, and please submit more next year.
Sophia, do you have questions for the filmmakers?
Yes, I do. Hi, guys. Loved your films, but I want to know more about everyone's next projects, what you're currently working on, what you're going to shoot next. And mostly, I want to know if COVID is going to be mentioned or included at all, because it feels like a lot of people are doing like projects that have nothing to do with COVID. And at this point, I just wonder how how is this going to be possible to just brush over everything that's happening. Yeah, so like I'm really curious to see what's your take on what you're doing next. Who wants to start?
You start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, after the short film, I finished the movie script. I submitted the script to Lab Guion in Colombia and also to ISLAB. These programs focus on helping you improve your script, exposing the material to great screenwriters and script doctors. You're working on your story for a whole week, receiving input from fellow writers and filmmakers. After that, I had so many notes, I was really drained. So I took a month to rest and then go back to the work. I finished the second version, gave it to a fellow producer, and he gave notes back. And 3 days ago, I finished the script. So we are ready to move on to financing process to make the film a reality.
Yay!
Yay!
Yeah, that's amazing.
I have a short film also that's called The Lady of the Forest. It's about this girl that has her mom sick on her bed and she can't move, she can't eat for herself. And while all of this drama is happening in her house, a creature is trying to get in. But I haven't finished the sound design because of money reasons. I have to do every single thing. So maybe it's going to be finished by July, more or less.
Okay, interesting. Is that a queer film?
No, sadly, it isn't.
Cool. Cool. Unfortunately, it isn't. But send us your feature when it's ready. Like, we'd
Sure,
love to
I
watch
will.
it. Yeah. So who's next? Let's go with Jason.
Yeah, I just finished a short film called Binky, written by a comedian friend of mine that Jamie Janik, who's hilarious. You should look her up. And it doesn't address quarantine and COVID directly, but it's about this group of friends reconvening for the first time in a long time, and it's sort of implied that they've been away from each other for, reasons, and they're reconvening for a pet funeral, and hilarity ensues. But yeah, it's a good one. And then and then also just being at home, I'm an editor as well, so I'm just like editing all the time and editing all kinds of projects for myself and others. But it's also, all this time at home is giving me a reason to start to learn animation, so I've been trying to teach myself that, and I've done 2 animated project, like short projects, since we've all been stuck at home. So yeah.
Nice.
Very
Okay.
productive. I wish I was that
Yeah.
productive in quarantine.
I know, I'm
You're putting on a festival, lady.
hyperactive.
I know, but I should learn. I would love to learn animation.
You should just start doing it. Yeah, it's been a way to like create and stay collaborative with people, and not necessarily be able to be in the same room and make films together, but
Yeah, for sure.
to marry our like creative sensibilities and send files and things back and forth, and still create stories. So yeah.
What about you, Tristan?
Mutilate. I had all these big hopes and ambitions at the beginning of the pandemic, that I was going to finish the screenplay that I had started, that I was going to teach myself how to do new things. And I have had sometimes a really hard time just like getting out of bed. And I've had a really hard time just like getting to do the things that I need to do, like walking outside and cooking dinner and calling my parents, and just like the really basic things for a long time in the last year were really hard for me. And it was really hard to not beat myself up over not getting some of that stuff done. And I still feel this sense of like shame around it now that things are opening back up, and this time that I had like wanted to have for so long in a very different way was just given to us, and now it's seeming like we're kind of getting to the end of it. And I'm dealing with a little bit of shame about what I didn't do with the time, and I'm trying to like come to a place of acceptance for where we're at. And
It's okay. I literally just did a Q&A for a film festival my short was in, and they always ask the question, what are you doing now? It's like, I actually have not written anything in the past year or shot anything, because I don't know. I haven't felt creative.
It's been hard to find that inspiration. And I'm lucky because I had something that I had written in at the end of 2019 that got canceled because of the pandemic. We were supposed to shoot it, and we were supposed to shoot like March 19th of 2020, and we had to cancel it. And it was kind of a follow-up to a previous short I had done. And so now that's going to be happening. So I'm excited that was kind of ready to go. And we're going to be shooting that in a couple of weeks now that the city's opening back up. But
awesome.
It's weird. It's I think it's been an intense time for a lot of creative people. And I just didn't want to, I don't know, I just didn't want to give a fully optimistic answer, or I didn't want to avoid the fact that it's been really hard to be creative.
I think one of the things that the pandemic has really kind of like at least taught me is to give everyone a little bit more birth as far as like expectations and sort of like results, because it's been a freaking dumpster fire. My God. But at the same time, like it's very encouraging to hear all the stories of sort of the creativeness as well, and also, you know, producing something in the midst of all of this kind of madness is really kind of it's inspiring. So don't beat yourself up too much, Tristan, please. I know we're all our own worst enemies sometimes. So James, you said you had a question. Do you want to ask?
Yeah, I'll jump in now. Hey, so I just wanted to ask you guys as filmmakers, and obviously the team can chime in too, is that back in the day when we started this program, GTFO, it was sort of seen as I used to call it the island of misfit shorts, because everything didn't really fit. And I think over the years, I don't know, and that's why I'm asking like the programmers to sort of respond to, is like I feel like more and more people or filmmakers and artists are looking to branch outside of these sort of rigid structures of documentary and narrative and experimental. And I think it's sort of amazing that, you know, we've been able, like I thought this would only we do it for a couple of years and then we'd have to, like, you know, it would sort of fade as a GTFO program. So I guess my question for everybody here is, like, you know, do just to sort of take film as this opportunity to do something that's really sort of interesting and smart, but also not like anything else. And I think that's sort of kind of that's what we look for, as we watch hundreds and hundreds of films, that you're like, this is something I've never seen before, and how the fuck do you do that? Like, you know, how do you approach your art? Like, you know, and I know it's like it's sort of something intrinsic as we make work, to think about, I'm making something that really interests me, and I don't give a shit if it like goes anywhere. So I think it's sort of a two-part question about, like, you know, your sort of attitude about making work, but then also what has the reaction been? Because, you know, we see this as a space to place this kind of work, and many festivals don't have this window, and so you're not going to get screened because you don't follow this path, you don't make this kind of film. And so anyway, that's sort of, it's like a bunch of sort of a multi-parted question, but I feel like this is sort of the core of GTFO, is like, you know, going back to the island of misfit shorts, sort of like what I call it.
Who wants to start? Go ahead, Jason. Yay. Jump on
Well,
in.
I'm just so grateful for something that embraces these kinds of films, because I have been told that from so many festivals that were like, well, we just didn't quite have the right block for you, or it didn't quite fit with the other films, and it wasn't funny enough, or it wasn't dramatic enough, or it was too experimental, not experimental enough, so it's really nice to have a program like this. They're the films that I like to make and the films that I like to watch, so thank you.
You're welcome. Any other, Tristan or Gilberto?
It's very hard to accomplish empathy from the audience towards your characters if there is an invisible conflict. That's why I decided to use lighting and color to guide the audience through the mental journey. Um, Sort of like theater, I used blue, yellow, orange, red, green to highlight those changes. And the art department and wardrobe coordinated that in every scene, all the colors were present. Because even though certain emotions feel stronger, and sometimes in reality they are always there, just like minimized. So we really took an effort to try to make this as colorful and surreal, that's a word, right?
Yeah.
Surreal.
Yep.
As possible, and I'm very grateful that you let us have the short film with you.
We're
um
glad.
how has the reaction been, Gilberto? I'm curious. I mean, I feel like, you know, your film is probably the most narrative, straightforward, but it also isn't, and in some ways, because you're speaking about emotion, and you're speaking about mental states. And I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with the film we showed, gosh, Shauna, was it 3 years ago? Stefan's film about anxiety,
Oh, yes.
Neverland,
Neverland, yes.
which I thought was one of the most amazing films to actually really accomplish the sort of visualization of what anxiety feels for people. And I feel like your film does that too, but I feel like, you know, it's hard to get that across. Like and so kudos to you, because I think you did such an amazing job with this film.
Thank you. The reviews have been mixed. People have liked it. Others didn't understand. Um, I guess that it's maybe someone can see this short film and see something else that what I intended for in the beginning. Maybe they don't see um, mental illness, but they also see self-discovery or something else, and I'm really open to that. The critics have said that the short film it's really rushed, but I always have that problem. My mind is always working uh, towards bigger stories, movies, series, and it's really hard to start like cutting this uh, long story and make it into 50 minutes
Yeah.
because I want to get in festivals, and because of it, the story suffers. So eventually, I know we're gonna make the feature film, and I'm gonna have a long time to uh, present the story as slowly as possible. And
Yeah, it's hard to be your own editor. We all know that. All of us who make our own films, it's a hard spot to be in.
yeah,
Tristan, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I love this block. It's such an honor to be a part of it. I think it's always really exciting, especially in like a queer film space, to like have these blocks where everyone can kind of see a really broad range of um, representation on camera, and a broad a broad range of sexuality and sexual expression. It's really nice. Um, in terms of me with fitting into that box and being included in it, I've really always felt that if you like stick on a clear path and keep forging ahead, your work will find its audience, and that audience may have 5 people, it may have just your parents, but I think that being authentic is really important, and I think that for me, if I tried to make something to fit into a really standard Sundance con film festival like
Yeah.
space, it just wouldn't be something that I was interested in making or seeing or participating in. So yeah, you just gotta do what comes out, and for me, it's guys having sex with themselves.
We really appreciate that, because James and I kind of talked about this when the program was sort of being conceived, when I was I was the director of programming then, and because we found these like films that were like they don't fit in a nice easy box. And I know myself as a filmmaker, I'm an experimental filmmaker, and my films are handmade, and I've never gotten into a festival except for Boston, because I have shown in Boston at this festival when James was executive director, and thank you. Um, but I also, like, as a director of programming and also as an executive director, I wanted to create space for filmmakers who don't fit into easy boxes, and especially queer filmmakers, because again, those are interesting stories that aren't getting told and shown because other people are too afraid to put them out into the public, because they won't make money, they're a little uncomfortable, they're a little too sexy, they don't make immediate sense. And I say pshaw to all that. Because I feel like what's really wonderful about what we're doing here is that we give that space to sort of like let the stories tell themselves, and I think that's the most important thing, because there's Frameline, there's Outfest, there's Sundance, there's Con, there's all that kind of stuff, but we don't have to be them, because we can be as wicked and as queer as we want. So, and I'm glad that you guys are making films that sort of fit outside the box, and we can kind of celebrate that outsidedness. So, because I always feel like an other, so I always want to champion the other. So I don't know if anybody wants to add. Anybody?
I'm always the most excited about this program. I try to do, I try to like find unusual things. I program like the trans shorts programs mostly, and a lot of times I'm looking for unusual approaches to like talking about the trans experience. But even outside that trans experience, I love the idea of films that like come at storytelling from unusual directions. They're telling stories that like might not happen any other way. I'm thinking about different films that we've programmed in this that we've programmed in this particular block in the past that that I felt like really kind of were like mind opening kind of things. And I'm really glad that we make room for like filmmakers who for filmmakers and for films that don't fit in any, you know, that don't necessarily fit. And sometimes I find that like these programs kind of, even though they're very different films that you kind of have to like piece together, I've seen this program be really have a nice flow from film to film, and that's really gratifying too.
Yeah, I think this year's program is probably the most like, as far as point A to point B, has the most sort of like real. It had a really lovely flow, and it's a miracle that it does, because I have to say that even though we're a very small team as far as like of putting on a festival, and we talk a lot amongst ourselves, but we don't do a lot of I mean, we do some collaboration, but this is the truly only collaborative program for all of the programs, just to sort of like put a short in, and we'll see what happens. And everyone gets a pick. We wanted this program to be the most like egalitarian of all of the programming, because I feel like, you know, it is because we all see stuff in our sort of journey when we start getting submissions in and start kind of really watching stuff, what kind of stands out to us. And now we're on the sort of the lookout too for the sort of the other as well, which is also kind of nice. So we know that those films that kind of are sometimes a little shocking, sometimes a little like controversial, sometimes a little that make you think, can also have a little bit of a place too as well. So again, I love working with this team, and I think that this program is always sort of like, it's usually when we do our physical festival is also the last program. So it seems like it's sort of like the I don't know, the cherry on top of the sundae, I guess. Or maybe the hot fudge that's left at the bottom of the sundae of the
Or the
dish.
corn on the cob.
Depending on the film.
With some corn on the cob. Spoiler, corn on the cob. Anybody want to add anything else before we wrap this up? No.
Well, I just know for me, when it comes to creativity and productivity, art is very personal, and to step outside the box and actually hit submit, to have people see it, judge it, is a really, can cripple you with fear. So I'm glad you did submit, that we found a place for you, because I have art that's never going to see the light of day. Sean, when you have to clean out my house, you'll be surprised at the art I've created. But no, so it's really, important that you just keep trying no matter what. So I appreciate that effort. Thank you.
Why do I get that job of cleaning out your house?
You got the keys, girl.
I'll get it before the cops come. And on that note, GTFO is running for the entire month. We started on April 1st, run into April 30th, part of our 17 short extravaganza all month long of Gapril. So please watch some shorts. Let us know how we're doing too. There's a discussion field in every program. Vote for your best. We do give a best in show. Our main festival starts April 8th to the 18th with 27 features of queer loveliness coming towards you. If you want tickets and information, go to www.wickedqueer.org. Thank you all filmmakers for coming. It was lovely to sit down with you to hash this all out and have some laughs and hear some stories. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks
Thank
programmers.
you guys.
Thanks,
you.
Jacques.
Thanks for having us.
And Jacques
Thank you.
too.
Bye, guys. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.